Foogiano has barely stepped out of 5 years in federal prison, and already his return is shaking up hip-hop. Why does his comeback feel bigger than a simple homecoming? Because the timing is impossible to ignore. He did not come back to peace. He came back to chaos. His label is in crisis, his boss is under fire, one artist is facing serious federal allegations, another key name is already behind bars, and a diss record has turned private tension into public warfare. So when Foogiano finally walked free, the message he sent carried weight. This was not a random post. Not a vague caption. Not a harmless interview quote. It was a signal. And if you understand everything he has been through, you understand why people are paying attention. Foogiano, born Quinavius Khalil Brown on July 4, 1993, grew up in Greensboro, Georgia. That is not some major city filled with endless opportunity, flashing lights, and instant escape routes. It is the kind of place where people often feel life closing in before they even become adults. Small towns can build character, but they can also trap ambition. For many young men there, the choices seem painfully limited. Music, sports, or the streets. Those are often the exits people believe they have. For Foo, life changed early. By the time he was 12 years old, a family secret surfaced that shifted his entire world. It was the kind of truth that can make a child grow up overnight. Suddenly, trust looked different. Home felt different. The way he viewed people around him changed. Questions started forming that had no easy answers. Who could he trust? Who was really there for him? And if the people closest to you can keep life-changing secrets, where do you find stability? That emotional weight pushed him deeper into the environment around him. The streets did not ask many questions. They offered fast money, fast respect, and the illusion of control. For a teenager trying to make sense of betrayal and pressure, that pull can be powerful. But the streets always collect their debt. That path led to legal trouble. In 2013, Foogiano faced burglary and robbery charges, serious accusations that put his future in jeopardy. By 2014, he was sentenced and served time. Prison has a way of stripping everything down. No distractions. No pretending. Just time, consequences, and reflection. For some people, prison becomes the end of ambition. For others, it becomes the place where ambition is born. For Foogiano, it sharpened something. Behind bars, he had time to think about what kind of life he wanted waiting for him on the outside. He understood the streets could only offer temporary wins and permanent losses. Music, though, felt different. Music could turn pain into profit. It could turn survival into a story people listened to. When he got out, he attacked rap seriously. The talent was obvious. His delivery was aggressive, emotional, and unfiltered. He did not sound polished in the traditional industry sense, and that actually worked in his favor. People believed him because nothing felt manufactured. His music sounded like lived experience, not label strategy. Then came the breakout. Molly, Baby Mama, started building real momentum around 2020. It was not a carefully packaged industry rollout with giant promotional budgets and fake hype. It was raw street energy. It spread because people connected with it. The song had authenticity, and authenticity travels fast when listeners are tired of polished performances. Soon, the record picked up enough attention to earn a remix from Lil Baby, and that changed everything. That remix was not just a cosign. It was validation. Suddenly, Foogiano was no longer just another local rapper trying to escape his city. He was becoming a real force in southern rap conversations. People who had never heard his name before were now asking the same question. Who is this guy? And the man who saw it clearly was Gucci Mane. Gucci has always had an eye for raw talent. He helped define Atlanta trap music and built a reputation for spotting artists before the mainstream caught up. He understood hunger because he came from it. He recognized authenticity because he had lived it. When Gucci looked at Foogiano, he did not just see another rapper. He saw potential. In 2020, he signed Foogiano to 1017, giving him a platform that many artists spend years chasing and never reach. For an artist with a complicated past, that kind of opportunity can feel like both a blessing and a final warning. This is your shot. Do not waste it. Foogiano's debut album, Got a Baby, dropped in November 2020 and immediately made noise. It hit #1 on Billboard's Heatseekers chart. For someone who had come from prison cells and street corners, that moment represented something much bigger than chart placement. It looked like proof that the story was changing. Fans believed they were watching the rise of a new star. But success in hip-hop often arrives with old problems still attached. And then the trouble began. In December 2020, Foogiano was arrested in Georgia for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. For many people, that charge might sound simple. For someone with his record, it was anything but simple. Prior convictions meant the legal consequences were immediate and severe. The system was not interested in second chances. It was ready to remind him exactly where he stood. He was granted bail, but the conditions were strict. He had to wear an ankle monitor. He had to remain in Georgia. He had to stay visible, controlled, and compliant. At that moment, the smart move seemed obvious. Keep your head down. Protect the deal. Protect the music. Protect the future. But Foogiano was never known for choosing the safe road. According to reports, he allegedly burned off the ankle monitor and disappeared. Just like that, the rising star became a fugitive. 4 months, he stayed on the run. And what made the story even more unbelievable was that he was not exactly hiding in silence. Reports claimed he was still making music, still moving around, and even performing under his real name. That detail alone became legend. It sounded reckless, almost impossible. But it also revealed something important about his mindset. Some artists learn to survive by playing the game carefully. Others move like the warning signs do not apply to them. Foogiano was clearly the second type. Was it confidence, pride, desperation? Maybe all three. There is a dangerous psychology that can come with sudden success. When someone spends years fighting to escape poverty and prison, fame can create the illusion of invincibility. Rules start feeling optional. Consequences feel far away. Until they are not. In March 2021, federal agents caught him in Memphis. The run was over. There would be no dramatic escape story, no last-minute miracle, no clean ending. In May of that year, he was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. 5 years. In hip-hop, 5 years can erase careers. Trends change. Fans move on. New stars replace old ones. Entire movements rise and die in that amount of time. And while Foogiano sat behind bars, the world around 1017 kept moving in dramatic and often tragic ways. Pooh Shiesty, one of Gucci Mane's biggest stars, faced his own federal gun case and later received a major sentence. Another rising artist, Big Scar, died in 2022 at just 23 years old, a loss that shocked the rap community and left fans asking how so much promise could disappear so quickly. Then Enchanting died in 2024, adding another layer of pain to a label already carrying too much grief. In a very short span of time, a camp that once looked powerful, exciting, and unstoppable started feeling cursed. Every few months, another headline. Another funeral. Another federal case. Another artist gone. What does that do to someone watching from prison? Imagine sitting in a federal cell, hearing those updates one by one. No control. No way to help. Just time to think. Time to replay old conversations. Time to wonder if things would have been different if you had stayed free. Did Foogiano feel survivor's guilt? Did he feel anger? Did he blame himself for wasted years? Or did prison make him even harder? Those are the questions fans started asking. Because prison changes people, but it does not always change them in the same direction. By late 2024, Gucci Mane made another move that set off even more conversation. He announced he was parting ways with most of the artists on 1017, choosing to keep only Pooh Shiesty and Foogiano. On the surface, it sounded like a normal business decision. Labels restructure all the time. Artists come and go. Contracts change. Money moves. But this situation felt strange. Because the 2 artists he chose to keep were both in prison. That made people stop and think. Was Gucci betting on loyalty? Was he protecting relationships built deeper than business? Or did he believe those 2 still represented the strongest long-term investment, even from behind bars? In hip-hop, Loyalty is talked about constantly. But how often is it actually tested? Keeping artists who cannot currently make you money says something. It suggests belief. It suggests unfinished business. And maybe Gucci understood something everyone else missed. Prison does not always kill momentum. Sometimes it builds mythology. Then came January 2026. And everything turned darker. According to federal allegations, Gucci Mane and others were pulled into what was supposed to be a studio meeting in Dallas. On paper, it was meant to resolve contract issues. A business conversation. A negotiation. Something private and professional. But prosecutors say it became something far more serious. Authorities alleged that the situation exploded into an armed confrontation. Pooh Shiesty was accused of taking part, and several people were charged in connection with what investigators described as kidnapping, robbery, and a coordinated armed takeover. Suddenly, 1017 was no longer just dealing with industry gossip or internet drama. This was federal territory again. Serious accusations. Serious headlines. Serious consequences. And right in the middle of that storm, Foogiano walked free. Think about that timing. After 5 years, he steps out not into celebration, but into confusion. His label is under pressure. His mentor is surrounded by controversy. One of the few artists still tied to the brand is facing devastating allegations. What kind of comeback is that? Most people return home hoping for peace. Foogiano returned to a battlefield. That is why his first message mattered so much. People were not just reading words. They were reading strategy. Reading loyalty. Reading warning signs. Was he standing with Gucci? Was he preparing distance? Was he signaling to fans that he was focused only on music? Or was he quietly reminding everyone that despite prison, despite losses, despite chaos, he was still here? Because sometimes the loudest statement is simply surviving. Foogiano did not come back as the same artist who left. He came back older, harder, more watched, more questioned. And maybe that is why his return feels bigger than a normal release date or prison homecoming post. It feels like the next chapter of a much larger story, one that never really ended, only paused. The real question now is simple, but the answer may be dangerous. Can Foogiano finally turn survival into legacy? Or will the same patterns that built his reputation destroy the future waiting in front of him? Hip-hop is watching closely, and not just for entertainment. This is no longer about another rapper stepping out of prison and posting a welcome home picture. This is bigger than music charts, bigger than label politics, and bigger than internet gossip. It is about whether redemption is actually real, or whether some stories are written long before the ending arrives. Because for years, 1017 was more than a label, it was a symbol. It represented raw street energy mixed with mainstream opportunity. It was the place where pain became profit, where survival turned into branding, and where loyalty was supposed to mean everything. But somewhere along the way, that symbol started to crack. And now, standing in the middle of those cracks, is Foogiano. The alleged details surrounding the collapse are severe and impossible to ignore. A contract release form was reportedly involved. Jewelry, cash, expensive watches, gone. One victim was allegedly choked so badly that authorities claimed they were nearly unconscious. Investigators pointed to surveillance footage, phone records, vehicle tracking, and witness statements. They said the evidence created a clear picture of what happened that night. The case exploded because it had everything the culture could not stop talking about. Music, money, violence, betrayal, loyalty, and legal consequences all tied together in one story. It was not just a criminal case. It became a public trial of character. People were not only asking who was guilty, they were asking who was real. And then came the detail that changed everything. During a later hearing, testimony reportedly revealed that Gucci Mane had spoken to Dallas police on the night of the incident. Investigators reportedly relied, at least in part, on information from him and people close to him. That single detail shifted the entire conversation. Suddenly, the focus was no longer only on Pooh Shiesty or Big 30. Now the spotlight turned directly toward Gucci. Was he protecting himself? Was he protecting his business? Or had he crossed a line that the streets never forgive? That debate became brutal because Gucci Mane was never just another executive. He was the blueprint for survival in trap music. He built an entire legend around toughness, loyalty, and surviving situations that destroyed other people. So when that image gets challenged, people do not react quietly. They react personally. Can someone be both a victim and a villain in the same story? Can someone protect their life and still lose their reputation? That question became even louder when Gucci released Crash Dummy in April 2026. The song did not whisper. It pointed. Even when names were not directly spoken, listeners understood exactly where the energy was aimed. The lyrics referenced betrayal, a fake meeting, trust being broken, and the feeling of being set up by people once considered close. To some fans, it sounded like self-defense. A man finally speaking after being dragged through public opinion. To others, it sounded like something else entirely. It sounded like dirty laundry being aired in front of the world. And that is where the internet did what it always does. It split in half. Some people said Gucci had every right to defend himself. If someone puts you in danger, why should silence be required? Why should protecting yourself be seen as weakness? Others felt the opposite. They believed he was contradicting the very mythology he spent decades building. Because if you spend years selling the image of street loyalty, what happens when real-life consequences arrive at your front door? Can you suddenly become the victim without people questioning the script? Can a trap legend switch into businessman mode and expect everyone to accept the transition? Or does the past always collect its debt? That tension is exactly why Foogiano's return feels so heavy. Because while the internet was arguing over Gucci, another figure was preparing to step back into the world. Quietly. Without interviews. Without loud announcements. Without explanations. On April 21st, 2026, Foogiano came home. And within minutes, the photos spread everywhere. He was smiling. Grills shining. Standing like someone who had been away physically, but never mentally left the room. For many people, that image alone carried more weight than any statement could. He had survived federal prison. He had not broken. He had not disappeared. He had returned looking like the same man people remembered. But appearances can lie. Because prison does not just change your schedule. It changes your mind. 5 years is enough time to lose people. Enough time to watch friendships disappear. Enough time to realize who answers the phone and who only answered when the lights were brighter. 5 years is enough time to stop believing in things you once would have died for. So yes, he came home smiling. But what exactly did he come home to? That is where the story gets darker. His label boss is surrounded by controversy. One artist is still sitting in federal custody. Several former label mates are either dead, missing from the spotlight, or completely disconnected from the movement that once looked unstoppable. The label itself feels less like a kingdom and more like ruins. And standing in the middle of it all is Foogiano. The one name people still recognize. The one face people still expect to speak. The one person whose silence suddenly feels louder than everyone else's noise. That is why this homecoming does not feel normal. This is not just a rapper getting released. This is the last man standing walking back into a burning house. And everyone can feel it. The pressure is enormous. Because every move he makes now will mean something. If he stays close to Gucci, people will call it loyalty. That would be the old school move. The respectful move. Gucci gave him an opportunity when many others would not have. He opened doors. He put belief behind a name that still had more potential than proof. In hip-hop, that history matters. People remember who gave them the first real shot. Walking away from that can look like betrayal. But staying can also look like blindness. Because what if the damage is too deep? What if the brand itself has become too heavy to carry? After 5 years inside, watching everything unfold from a distance, Foogiano may decide he does not need the baggage anymore. Maybe freedom means separation. Maybe the smartest move is not rebuilding old walls but building something new entirely. Could he leave 1017 and finally become his own man? Would the streets respect that, or call it abandonment? And then there is the third possibility. The one people whisper about the most. The one that makes people uncomfortable. What if Foogiano starts talking? Not with a vague Instagram caption. Not with a cryptic tweet. Not with half-hidden meaning inside a freestyle. What if he really talks? What if he sits down for one honest interview? What if he drops one record where every line cuts directly into the truth? Because after 5 years of silence, there may be more waiting behind those words than anyone realizes. He has had time. Time to think. Time to replay conversations. Time to question loyalty. Time to understand who benefited while he sat behind walls. That kind of silence is dangerous because it usually means reflection. And reflection often creates clarity. What did he learn in prison? Who stayed solid? Who disappeared? Who protected him? Who protected themselves? Those answers matter because prison strips away performance. There are no club sections. No chain-heavy interviews. No social media filters. Only time. And time tells the truth. That is what makes his return chilling. Not because he is loud. Because he is not. Loud men are easy to read. Silent men make people nervous. Especially when those silent men return stronger than expected. He has watched careers collapse. He has watched alliances shift. He has watched the same people who preached loyalty move differently when pressure arrived. And people who watch long enough eventually stop watching. They act. So the real question is not just what happened when Foogiano got home. The real question is what happens next. Does he stand beside Gucci and help repair what is left of 1017? Does he separate himself completely and build a fresh career untouched by old label politics? Or does he become the voice no one was prepared to hear? The man who finally reveals what prison taught him about the people, the industry, and the code he once believed in. Because maybe the biggest lesson was not about prison at all. Maybe it was about freedom. Who was really free? The man behind bars? Or the people outside still trapped in the same cycles of ego, violence, and loyalty tests that never end? That question is bigger than Foogiano. It touches the entire culture. Hip-hop has always celebrated survival. But survival alone is not legacy. Legacy requires change. It requires discipline. It requires knowing when the old version of yourself has to die so the future can live. Can Foogiano do that? Can he evolve without losing respect? Can he choose peace without being called weak? Can he stay real without staying stuck? Those are the questions everyone is waiting to see answered. Because if he succeeds, his story becomes bigger than comeback music. It becomes proof that the cycle can break. But if he fails, it becomes another familiar headline. Another talented name trapped by the same old ending. Another reminder that in this world, escaping prison does not always mean escaping the prison. Whatever happens next, one thing is already clear. Foogiano's return is not a footnote. It is not a side story. It is the next chapter in something much bigger, and the entire culture is already watching. And maybe the hardest truth of all is this. The last man standing on 1017 is no longer the person everyone thought they were watching. He is not just another artist trying to restart momentum. He is a witness. A survivor. A man standing between loyalty and truth. And right now, everyone wants to know which one he chooses. Because now, he is no longer being watched. No. He is the one doing the watching.